final.
Oh my God, it's like every day. I have fun having this class at 11.
Psychology is a
Yeah.
big job.
Yeah.
Technology.
And
Yeah,
test that.
yeah, that's how he did it. Isn't that wonderful? He gave us a test last week. Just with regular tests, like just the, and then our finals today.
I think when you get to 20, we're on get to 20,
And then I present my.
like I could apply for something that like an hour, even an hour short. It's fun. I didn't really want to go. Yeah. You guys say about like chapter 5, chapter 1. For the test.
It's the biggest class, chapter 1. Very man. Yeah. They were really, I'm talking about the water, and they were working with the water in his classes. So he says,
Halfway here, because I thought for some reason in my mind that we were going to start at 9 today. 9:30, and I was like, oh God, now I can't remember. I'm going to be like half an hour late. I'm going to walk in during some presentation. Damn it, man.
Then I got here and I saw him walking down the sidewalk. I was like, okay, I must be wrong. He would be in there right now. So all your final today?
no, we don't fix it.
My best friend, today, I was with classes were done, and then I have another final tomorrow. And then after that, I tried my own first days. Both of them.
Dr. Stahl asked me to remind you guys that there's a conference coming up. You know about it?
The winter celebration.
Sorry?
What is it? I know the winter celebration.
No, it's a regional.
Rehab.
Yeah. And it's a bunch of smart people that you don't know for fame, some pretty smart people who can verify them. So, see,
Yeah, you just.
I do.
Yeah.
Good morning. How about let us make a couple of videos before we start? It's a couple of minutes. No. Okay, so between you, right? You and you, okay. 13 voice. Today is July.
Might as well, okay.
You need
Yeah, yeah. That's always the trick, I never know how to get this thing operating.
can you write
I can try.
comment number? Need to know.
Oh my gosh.
Grade out comment.
No, just need 100 is max. We'll turn on this one.
I'm not good at
Oh. This is the
I'm actually excited to see everyone's presentation. I wish everyone did one.
What a surprise.
No, I'm not going to do it. I will put pictures. You can just imagine I did.
How do I open my phone right here?
So you double click it?
Is it good?
Oh. It should pop up and ask what you want to do with the flash drive. Or go down to like file. No, you're not going to shoot and go there. You have to go to view.
Go to that file down there.
File?
Yeah. By the Internet Explorer.
Okay.
Other one on the right side of it.
That?
Yeah.
Oh, the
Removable
removable
disk.
disk. Okay, thank you.
Christmas presents.
I hate it when it asks that. Why is it do this? Okay. So, hello, everybody. And before I get started here, I just want to, I know this is kind of weird, and I know I brought a fruit tray and everything else, but since it's our last class together, and because this has to do with my presentation, I brought some awesome apple cider. So what I thought I could do is, if anybody's interested, I'll just open it and leave it up here. But it does have to do with my topic. That's okay with you. It's really good. It's like one of my favorites. Yeah. Anybody that wants some. Should I pour it and just let you guys? Sorry. We can do it. It's fine. It's not a very big jar, sorry, but
Anyone have jelly legs and you bring some cider? They can't all have it.
I promise it has a point. It has a point.
I'm allergic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't know. I can't do lobster.
Oh, really? I mean, that food?
Like anything, I really don't know what it is. It's like fruit in my mouth and it's in my throat. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You can't have fruit
I'll
because
pretend.
of crumbs. Like this would be like death in a cup to him. It's a treat for me to ever have fruit.
Let's get a start too.
He has Crohn's and all fruit just makes him like pitiful.
Oh.
Acids and fruit.
I'm so sad.
Like bananas and oranges are like death.
Tomatoes.
But for some reason, I feel like
Okay. Okay, now I'll continue. Sorry for that distraction. The reason I brought cider was because when I was a really young girl in elementary school, my class took a field trip to a local farm. And they had this huge wooden machine that basically would make cider fresh from the apples on the farm. And what we would do, when I was this tall, really small, we would stick our little cups under the pour spout and literally drink the cider fresh. And even though that was more than a decade ago, I still remember that experience very fully. And I have positive connotations towards apple cider, especially that one in particular. So today the topic that I wanted to discuss, I'm referring to it as the meditation diet, and literally this idea that you are what you eat. And just to get more in depth with that, I'm interested not so much in how food affects us physically as it does mentally. In particular, sort of what I just mentioned, we attach our emotions and our experiences to what we eat, and those attachments can turn into patterns over time that really do affect why we eat what we eat, when we eat it, how we eat it, and even foods that we choose not to eat. So my goal isn't to attach any kind of like judgment on any particular diet or weight or anything like that. It's mainly about why we choose the foods we choose and how that can cause some problems for us. So that eventually, you know, we eat when we're busy, we eat when we're on the phone, you know, there's a lot of distractions that we face. So eventually we'll talk about how meditation can help improve this relationship and balance it out. And just to give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about, I'll briefly mention some stats, because I do love stats, being a psych major, about why Americans love, hate, and fear food. Then I'm going to mention 4 major emotions and characteristics that food can directly relate to. There's so many, but I chose these 4 because I think they're important, and there's a lot of research that back these: stress, boredom, love, and memory. And I'll look into 4 different research articles that cover each one of those, which some of them are really interesting. And then when we get into mindfulness, I'll talk about how mindfulness can help. There's a really interesting bit about Deepak Chopra and something that he has to say about this. And then DBT, which we mentioned in class, dialectical behavior therapy, I'll talk about that briefly. So, I mean, I'm sure many of you guys can agree that we are sort of consumed with food. I found a really cool quote from Adam Gopnik, who wrote The Table Comes First. And if you don't mind, I'll briefly read it just because it really spoke to me. The nature of hunger, the meaning of appetite, the patterns and traces of desire, tradition, and the way that recipes are passed mother to son, and history, and the way that spices mix, and in mixing mix peoples. You could envision through the modest lens of pleasure as through a keyhole a whole world, and the compression and odd shape of the keyhole made the picture more dramatic. Now the door is wide open, but somehow we see less or notice less anyway. Betrayed by its enlargement, food becomes less intimate the more intensely that it's made to matter. And what I took that to mean is that food really isn't necessarily food anymore. I mean, we have all these labels for it. It's either organic, or it's good for you, it's bad for you, it's high in calories, it's high in fiber, it's low in fiber. And before we even get it in our mouths, we have attached a judgment to it already. So it's not really, that already kind of skews our relationship with it. So it becomes kind of an obligation. It's just a part of our routine. For some people it's escape, for some people it's a fantasy. Before I talk about how that has literally affected our brain, I do want to mention these stats from DoSomething.org, and they're pretty current, and I don't want to stand up here and go through like a ton of stats with you guys, but I picked out 7 that I thought were important. This one's really pretty interesting. In 2012, 52% of Americans that were polled, and this was a national study, found that doing their taxes was easier than eating healthy, which is pretty telling. At least 1 in 4 people eat some type of fast food every day, which I can definitely believe. This stat says that the U.S. Department of Agriculture found that we consume 1 ton of food on average per year. Most Americans believe that their source of calories play the most important role in their weight gain, and typically we blame carbs, sugars, and fats for those. Americans consume 31% more packaged food than fresh, which I can believe as well. This one was really interesting. 20% of all meals are eaten in the car. So that was pretty interesting. And then Americans spend 10% of their disposable income on food. So obviously we spend a lot of money on this, we invest a lot of time in this, but what do we really get out of it? So what these stats say to me, how they relate to the brain, I think they directly relate to this idea that Americans are stressed. I mean, we are in a hurry. Food becomes more of a convenience. I mean, it just needs to be quick. It's got to fit into whatever we're doing. And I certainly agree with that. I mean, I'm not saying that I eat fast food occasionally too. I mean, sometimes you have to. But I think it's something that you can see that's widespread. And I think what happens is when you do this consistently over and over, this pattern can really affect the way you view food in general. And it can lead to something called emotional eating.
which scientifically means, or just defined as, it's a change in our consumption of food in response to an emotional stimuli. And that's been linked to all kinds of negative psychological and physiological research, some of which I'm about to talk about. But in particular, stress. I mean, that's the number one reason that most research, it says that we eat. And I think I already mentioned, there's sort of a rush to eat food quickly. And now on the opposite side, kind of the flip side, a lot of research suggests that people eat when they're just simply bored, when there's not enough going on. You kind of switch into autopilot mood, and you're not even aware that you're eating. There's plenty of examples. Sitting in front of the TV, in front of the computer, you just kind of naturally have something to munch on. Love and jealousy, I know it sounds weird, but there's a really interesting article about how really strong emotions like that can definitely dictate the way we eat and the way we perceive what we're eating. And then memory, some really interesting stuff on memory. There's some foods that actually enhance our memories by improving the life of our cells, such as chocolate, which I'll talk about more. But otherwise, the whole point of this presentation is to show that memory and food link to past experiences, and based on those experiences, you try to maybe recreate what you felt in what you're eating. So that's sort of the common theme here. So in talking about stress in the brain, the first article that I looked at, this is the model that the researchers came up with, and it's called the individual differences model. And it looks complicated, but really what it's saying is that it all starts with your differences in our learning, history, attitudes, and biology, that depending on what your disposition is, you'll either be sort of at a higher vulnerability or lower vulnerability, it's a hard word to say, when stress is introduced. So based on what side of the spectrum you fall on, you'll have a physical or psychological change which encourages you to eat, or it may encourage you not to eat or to do something else to get your energy or your negative emotions out some other way, either through exercise or possibly talking, something like that. So it sounds fairly simple, but I just wanted to show it because it kind of illustrates sort of possibly where stress originates. Boredom in the brain, this research that I looked at was a study by Bowling Green State University. And the major findings here, which were interesting, was that, and this study looked at only undergraduate populations at this particular school. So I'm not trying to like attribute it to everybody, but I just wanted to mention it. They found that 25%, the highest percentage of responses, endorsed eating among normal and overweight participants. It didn't matter. They ate more when they were lonely or bored. And females actually in this study were more likely to report eating when depressed, which I'm sure we've all heard that before. Stressed is desserts backwards or whatever. So females typically are known to like dessert more. And then at the end, the discussion was really interesting. They linked this to this idea of food fatigue, which is sort of, I guess you could call it over-advertising in American culture. I mean, we see it every day. I think we get tired of it, the same messages, the same foods over and over again. And it kind of reminds me of something we talked about in class called autopilot, which to me is just kind of sort of laying back and not really paying attention to what you're doing, essentially. And definitely with food, I think that's a huge key. Memory in the brain, this study was really interesting. Major findings, basically Galome studied male and female young professionals, and they did a self-report survey in which they indicated how much they ate of specific foods during the week. And for males, she found that trans fats were most strongly linked to a poorer memory, which trans fats, you find trace amounts of those in milk, beef, hydrogenated oils, things like that. So these males that indicated they ate more of those had poorer memory on the memory test, which was just showing them flashcards and then having them recall those cards. she found that participants who reported eating more chocolate actually had better response time. So chocolate was actually the only food that was true of when they tested out everything that they had put on their survey. And of course, I already mentioned it, but chocolate has antioxidant effects, which improve the functioning of cells, so it improves our overall cognition. And then one really cool thing that this study found was that she found that the amount of chocolate intake per capita per country actually corresponded to the amount of Nobel Prize winners in that country, which I thought was really cool. You can hardly see it, but this side shows the amount. This axis is supposed to say number of Nobel Prize winners, and that's per chocolate consumption. So you can see there's a positive relationship as you go higher. So I just thought that was interesting. But again, it links back to this idea, how does eating become a learned behavior? Certainly, if people in Europe saw that chart, I would think that chocolate sales would go up very much. So love, jealousy, and the brain, really what I want to talk about, this is one of the coolest studies ever, I think. These researchers literally had people come into a lab and eat a different variety of foods. I think there were grapes, lemons, all kinds of spicy foods, all kinds of things. And they had them rate what feeling is associated with what food based on the taste. So they found that obviously the highest amount of responses associated love with sweetness and jealousy with sourness, which is what you can expect. But what I thought was interesting is if participants didn't rate love with sweetness, they actually associated it with sourness, bitterness, saltiness, spiciness. And I think that, in my opinion, I think that tells us that if you've had negative experiences with love, you may not necessarily associate a sweet taste with love. You might feel so strongly against it that what you eat may not taste the same as someone else, which is kind of obvious. But it's just interesting that they would associate something that's so clearly majority rules with sweetness as something different. Other interesting stats: passion was associated with sweetness and spiciness, sadness with bitterness and sourness, and betrayal with bitterness and sourness. So again, I was just going to illustrate that possibly depending on your particular situation or experience, it changes your perception of food. And particularly with love, I mean, I think if you're out on a first date or maybe even a second date, your feelings are more in tune with what's going on and your excitement possibly with your surroundings. So your food may even taste better when it's not necessarily, in 3 weeks if you go back and have that meal, it may not taste the same. So mindfulness, finally get to mindfulness. How can mindfulness help? So for me, in my opinion, the most important thing is to understand the association between the food and the reward. Like, what exactly are you getting out of that relationship? And one of the most fascinating things I thought was that merely looking at a food trigger can actually dictate it can mimic the exact same action in your brain as if you're eating that particular food. So, like if you smell a food or if you see a picture of it, or if you see someone else eating it, the exact same response is going to occur in your brain with the same intensity as if you're eating it yourself. So I think that really illustrates just how strong the attachment is with food in our brains. So if we can the trick is to sort of, I hate to say, not necessarily break the attachment, but recognize it and view it more as a singular event rather than a pattern that has to be continued. And this picture just illustrates how we think of different things. I mean, we might, depending on what we're thinking of at the time, it might dictate how we feel about a certain food item. Hopefully, this is just a really, really, really short clip. It's only 2 minutes, but I wanted to show it. It's Deepak Chopra, and I think if you can see two people having an actual conversation about this, it helps illustrate the point a little bit more than me just talking about it. So if it's okay, I'll cue it up. It's really brief. I tried to find the shortest thing I could, but hopefully you'll enjoy it if it plays. Oh, I have no sound. Let me pause and find sound. Of course. Sorry. Yeah.
Are there headphones plugged in? Are there headphones plugged in? Is that why there's a headphone?
Yeah. How do we?
I might not need the volume on
It's okay.
If it doesn't work, that's okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did that work? Okay. Okay, sorry. Let's try that. Okay. Okay, anyway, this should be brief now.
Hi, how are you? I'm Hannah. So I've been overweight since I can remember, and something I've really been struggling with now at 24 is how to break away from emotional eating. I seem to eat, from past emotions of like parents divorcing, of just being made fun of as a child, being overweight, and I want to be successful, and like my body's ready, and my mind seems somewhat ready, but I can't break away from the connection with emotions to food.
So you're aware of that. That's the best thing. Okay.
Yes.
Make a commitment to be practicing a lot of body awareness. Okay. Put your attention right now in your body. You put your attention in your stomach. Are you hungry now for physical food at this moment?
No.
Okay. So every time you're about to put food in your body, ask yourself, am I hungry right now? How hungry am I? What am I hungry for? Just by doing that, you'll break the reflex. And it's not going to be easy, by the way. My best advice to you is eat mindfully. When you're eating, don't do anything else. Okay? Observe your body for sensations of hunger and cut out sugar altogether if you can. Are you getting enough sleep?
Sleep is probably a big problem in my life right now.
Sleep deprivation causes obesity, as does stress, because these hormones not only interfere with signals, they mess up your metabolism. So meditate, get good sleep, walk 10,000 steps, wear one of these bands, okay? Walk 10,000 steps every day.
Thank you.
Take care.
That was it. I just wanted to show that because I think it's helpful to hear to, an actual person that is aware, like she understands that she is an emotional eater. So I thought it was helpful to see that. So key points, obviously, we talked about it a lot in this class, be just awareness of your body. In particular, be aware of your stomach when you're thinking about, if you're feeling stressed or you're going to have a stressful day, it might be wise to pay particular attention to those two things. And then, like the video mentioned, ask if you're actually hungry for physical food. What are you hungry for? And then when you eat, focus, if you can, on eating only and not other distractions. So I have to mention one thing that I thought of when I was looking at this video was something that I recently experienced. I was in Orlando with a work trip a few weeks ago, and we went to a lobster. It was like a lobster buffet or something. And at first I was really excited because I was like, oh, this is gonna be, it's a lobster buffet, that's so, like, amazing. But when I got there and sat down and there were so many people and just, it was kind of like overwhelming. Like I really did not enjoy the experience like I thought I would, because I don't really think that what I was hungry for was that. I kept thinking when I was there, I would really like love to be on my couch eating a peanut butter sandwich. And sure enough, when I went home, that's what I did. Like I was really kind of relieved to get home and eat that peanut butter sandwich, because it really, that was kind of at that moment what I was hungry for. It wasn't necessarily, and I hate to attach like lobsters to some kind of pomp and circumstance, but it was a little greedy to me, because you could go up and literally get a lobster over and over and over and over again on your plate, and it just kind of turned me off to it. So anyway, to briefly recap DBT, I know we talked about it before, dialectical behavior therapy. The reason I chose this one is because it is pretty well known as a strong treatment for eating disorders. But I think it can also be helpful in general for disordered eating or emotional eating. And 4 key components: mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness. All of those things, I think, in that order, hopefully, in my opinion, would help you to recognize maybe what causes a trigger to happen. Especially mindfulness, it kind of exposes yourself to those unconscious associations that you may have made with certain foods. And then with emotion regulation, the whole idea is to reduce that vulnerability that I talked about with stress to something like negative emotion. So you sort of mindfully let go of those painful emotions. And then once you do that, I think the distress tolerance, I think, is huge, because you can sort of just accept and realize there is emotional suffering. I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to feel these things. And it doesn't necessarily mean I need to like reach out and deal with that stress by eating or something like that. And then interpersonal effectiveness sort of means the ability to maintain self-respect, acknowledging the need not to please others. Sorry, that was a typo. But so yeah, this treatment in particular, I think, is really helpful if you're having trouble with eating. And I just want to conclude by making time for mindfulness. I mean, of course, the number one problem I think with all of this is, where do I find time to build any of these things in? How can I really realistically practice this? And the best answer I found for that, I actually read it. It's in an article in The Atlantic from a lady named Dr. Bays. She teaches meditation, and she's a pediatrician as well. And what she said is that even though she might be too busy to contemplate like a single food item, what she'll do is she'll, at one point during her day, she'll say, okay, I'm going to take 3 mindful sips of this tea, and then after I do that, I'll get back to work. And she says you can do this anytime, anywhere, really. And I really like that idea, and I think since I've been in this class, I've really been doing that more, to be honest. And what's interesting is you can also do that, the opposite of that. Like if you're eating in your car, if you've got like I do all the time, like a handful of fries, and you're like racing to your destination, you can sort of at least be aware of the fact that this is not ideal, and I don't necessarily want to be eating and driving, but at least I know that I'm doing that, and hopefully I can, just being aware of it, I think, is a nice thing. And like I said, since I started this class, and really a little bit before, over the summer in particular, I tried to really develop the way I choose what I eat more. In particular, treats. I used to go and buy coffees from either I'm a coffee fiend, so I would go out and have coffee at least maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and I really have stopped doing that. And now when I get a coffee like that, it's so good. It tastes so much better than when I was having them all the time. So I think we end up valuing those decisions more when we realize why we were making them in the first place. So I think that rounds it out. I'll take, those are my references. I'll take questions, and I just want to say thanks for such a memorable class. It really was one of the most fun ones I've had. So.
Thank you.
Thank you for the apple cider.
There's more. You guys missed the apple cider.
It's interesting about, you have the research about love, jealousy,
Yeah.
and the mindful, like the way I see it in 2013 and the research in Singapore. So I wonder, you know, like the test they do is because, like you're talking about, like when you feel jealousy or you feel betrayed, you're gonna eat something like spicy or bitter or something like that. Does that mean a different culture, they're gonna have a different taste, or they're gonna be the same?
Yeah, I wondered that too. I really didn't research. I stuck more with looking at American culture and diet with this, but I do think you're right. I think it would definitely, our relationship with food, I think, is definitely different across cultures.
Because when I see exactly when we trade with Asian niggas, if, oh, this is so spicy, this is so bitter, so sour. But with Americans, say, oh, it doesn't matter, I can move on. So that's why I think maybe somehow like different culture, they have a different look. So maybe like even if like you break up, maybe you can go to pick up an ice cream or chocolate and eat it to get over your unhappy. So I think maybe kind of different.
Yes.
I had a thought, and I guess I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but
I'll try.
well, I've heard from many women, not as much men, but maybe this is similar for them too, is that, well, I noticed in your presentation that it said typically we eat more or we eat worse, I don't know, when we're depressed or feeling a lot of stress, and I definitely noticed that that is common, but at the same time, I hear a lot of times that when people get into relationships, they let go of their healthy eating habits and they just eat whatever they want, and maybe that's because, you know, you like found someone and you're not as concerned about like meeting someone, so you just kind of like, oh, I'm good, I don't need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's something you notice in the research, because it's like, oh, when people are happy, do sometimes they eat more, or do they eat more when they're happy, or is that just?
Yeah, I think it has to do with your comfort level. I mean, for sure, married couples and committed relationships, I think you do sort of relax maybe your standards or your expectations, maybe. And also, I didn't mention it, but when you're depressed or sad, I mean, you can actually do the opposite, completely lose your appetite.
Right.
So I think it just depends on your particular association and relationship with food in any given circumstance. But yeah, definitely, I think with dating and being married, I think it definitely has an effect on how you eat.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Since we still have a lot of time, but we with this schedule, you guys go. Thank you. That's great.
Get ready. Yeah, I just need to get it over with. I don't know what's on my voice is gonna hold up.
No.
Oh, okay, so I just, do you?
Yes.
I need a new one, this is just for her.
Okay. Okay, so please give her comment and give her grade from 0 to 100. Okay. So write down her name and please, and the next one is Tina, please. Yeah. You need the jump drive and you can.
It's on my email account, so I'll have to like log out first and then
I'm having those for her. You're gonna give it to her later?
Keep it.
Keep it. Let me send notes for her. I didn't know I was making them for you. She made it for you. That I do.
It was interesting.
I see you got life so much, so straight out and
I thought I was writing a note for her.
Well, she got booked.
She has,
Oh, wow.
But he's not gonna
Yeah.
give it to us.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
She's
That's
special.
so straight. I was like, never had anybody so much.
Lindsay talked about love.
You're gonna catch it with your hands.
I didn't know what I was gonna do. Really, it was not.
It was fast reflex.
It's not for grabbing. That was really my dreams later. I went there for college. Let's see. Well, it was a couple of days ago. My friend and I went to go get ice cream, and we were in my car, and I had him hold it for me because
Which happens.
my car.
Like,
No, he
that's one of
didn't.
the-
I practiced didn't hold it, and like I was trying to keep off my jacket. So seriously, the ice cream cone was like juggled between the two of us and smeared all the way across like my steering wheel and like landed on the floor. And I was like, and that was so. I just picked it. Like I went in there and my gloves on it. It's like saving the way I had to open my water bottle this morning and it was like all over my dress. I was like, right.
Oh, you have to tell it. Ask me later.
What do you want from me? Go away!
You're supposed to tell it. Ask me later.
You just close out.
Go away! No, don't edit. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Do we have a clicker or do I have to use the mouse? Yeah, okay.
Oh, you can use the mouse.
Okay. Good. Okay, I'm very sick. Are you all ready to listen to my old lady voice for a little while? I was going to do my presentation over yoga and mindfulness, and then I decided I didn't know if I could talk about it for 25 minutes, and I didn't know if you guys wanted to watch me like play around on the floor for 25 minutes, so I changed it about a week ago, and I did a mindfulness model for my life because the paper requirements said you could develop one on a micro, meso, and macro level for someone else, so I decided to just do it over myself because mindfulness has done a lot for me. So the micro level deals with my physical and mental well-being as part of a family unit and as a spouse. So physical health, instead of me doing it, you can have some other pictures here. I started doing yoga about a year ago. I lost 35 pounds over the past year, and then now I have less time to work out, but I use mindfulness to manage my time. And I still do yoga to meditate and to maintain muscle tone. I usually meditate in a yoga position if possible. Fish pose is my favorite, which is this one, and it's definitely not as hard as you think. And then lotus is common. That's the one that a lot of people see is the lotus. And then this is a shoulder stand, which I've been working on, and then headstand. I can do those two. I just can't meditate longer than like a minute in those. So there's a few poses for you. And then we just heard a lot about mindful eating, so you have a nice little background on that. But I eat slower now. I know when I'm full now, that terrible feeling that you get when you eat too much and then you wish you could go back in time and just not eat at all because you just feel sick. I don't really get that anymore. Even on Thanksgiving when everyone's just like stuffing themselves, I just don't really do that anymore, you know? And I pay more attention to how foods make me feel after I eat them now. Like, do I feel like really bloated and sluggish, or do I feel like energized and like hydrated? I mean, the difference would be in like eating something really high in calories, like fast food or really salty. You know how after you eat that, people say after they eat McDonald's, sometimes they just like feel awful. That's what I'm talking about. And then like say you have like a plate of salad or fruit, and then afterwards you feel hydrated and you feel energized. I started paying attention to that instead of the immediate satisfaction that comes from food, like the taste of food. So I still treat myself, but it's just not the same now because it really is a treat and it's not just like shoving chocolate in your mouth. Even though apparently chocolate's great, so I'm gonna go home and have some. Sleep-wise, in my P 341 class, I learned that nightmares are a way that people cope with stress. And the reason why I actually researched this and read some articles over it is because ever since I was a kid, like probably 95% of my dreams are nightmares. Like people always talk about, oh, I dreamed about, going to the park last night and stuff. I don't hardly know what that's like. I don't really have good dreams. It's weird. I used to think it was just some kind of weird defect in my brain, but apparently that's how I personally cope with stress. Is I wasn't coping well with it while I was conscious, so while I was asleep, my brain was doing it for me. So if you're a person that has a lot of nightmares like me, or even if you just notice that you're having more of them, maybe you should use mindfulness like I do to deal with your negative emotions while you're conscious. So now I can be accepting of like negative feelings and thoughts that I have, and I can let myself feel those like to the fullest extent. If you're angry, get good and angry and get it out, let it pass like a wave. Then when you're asleep, you'll have nicer dreams. At least it helps me. And then we also learned about the body scan and MBSR, which could help with that as well. Because if you reduce your stress, then it might reduce your nightmares. Or doing a body scan could help you be aware of like physical tension. And then mental and emotional health. I used to be a really emotionally reactive person. I didn't know why. That comes back to, like I said, I apparently was not letting myself have negative emotions and thoughts because there are a lot of gender differences in our culture and some others too, but have you ever noticed as children, little boys are taught like you don't cry, you don't have feminine feelings, you don't love puppies and kittens and stuff. Past the age of like 4 and 5, they're taught you have to be tough, you don't cry, you don't have sissy feelings, And then girls are taught you have to be ladylike, you can't be mad, you can't be angry, you can't say curse words. So I think that contributes to when people are older, they suppress certain emotions. So I think gender has a difference there, and then I think culture will as well. So that might be something to research in the future. And then in high school, I experienced some trauma, which I just recently started talking about. In high school, I was sexually assaulted, and when you're that age, you don't really know how to deal with that stuff, and you don't really know how to classify it either. It's just kind of something happens, and then you have all these after effects, and you don't know how to deal with it. And now that I'm older, it doesn't really define me. It doesn't say who I am. I had a lot of depression and anger problems after that. And I don't mean anger problems like Hulk smashing things. Just inside, I felt angry a lot. And mindfulness has actually helped me almost completely get rid of that. I don't really have any of those inside anymore. I haven't had a depression problem since I started practicing mindfulness. I used to have sometimes where it would start to creep back up on me, even though now people are like, oh, you're so successful now, and you have a 3.9 GPA and you have a job and a house, but it'll still creep up and get you. So letting go of past hurts and then having the beginner's mind, that's been really important to me. You can't judge everyone on the same basis. Not all people are going to do bad things to you. You can't be mistrustful of everyone that you meet. And just the fact that I'm here and still kicking, that makes me feel pretty great. So mindfulness has helped mentally and emotionally a lot as well. On a family level, my brother has bipolar and several personality disorders that are undiagnosed. And my stepdad is an alcoholic. And then my grandmother has depression. She has her whole life. She's been married 13 plus times. I put the plus on there because we don't really know how many. I think that's how she deals with her depression, is she goes out and finds a random husband for a few months, and then she goes and gets a new one. So, my family is kind of crazy off some sitcom. And mindfulness has helped me deal with that because it's helped me to be very tolerant of them and accepting of their behaviors. And I don't feel like embarrassed of them anymore. Used to, I didn't really want to bring people around my family because I feel like they would judge them and judge me. But now, I mean, that's just how they are. I'm accepting of it. I know that they may always be like that. And then I can also teach them things that I have learned in here to help them deal with their own personal problems. And then my spouse. We first met, his little sister was 8 and she lived with him. So she was like his daughter pretty much because he's 25. And she passed away in a house fire. And his parents have been in and out of jail his whole life. So I mean, he bought her school clothes, he took her to school, he signed all her parent guardian slips like he was trying to adopt her. And so he was very shaken up from that for a very long time, and mindfulness has helped me to help him with that and be like accepting of what comes in life and that he might not always have an answer to it. He's in law enforcement. He is a reserve police officer working on getting a full-time job, and he's a corrections officer. So dangerous jobs come with a lot of stress. He told me when he first got into it that a lot of the guys there said, you know, you might want to talk to some of the other wives and other spouses on how to deal with it. And I have some, and it's helped. But the main thing is that stress is very physically taxing on your body. And I've read a lot of studies now about this since he told me. But he said that most men that go into this field don't live past 50 because they have heart attacks and strokes because they're so stressed. And so that made me worried because he also has Crohn's disease, which can also, you know, bring you to an early demise. So, and it is affected by stress. So I have tried very hard when we learn things about stress reduction in here or MBSR, tactics like that to help him reduce his stress. We meditate together sometimes. Yes, he does think it's kind of silly at first, but he's kind of into it now. And then conflicts and mindful time spent together, that can apply to all relationships. It sounds silly, but you can have a mindful disagreement or a mindful conflict with someone. You make your point, they make their point, and then you are mindful of their feelings and their point of view. And that's helped us a lot in just really laughing about things instead of being mad. Like, the other day we had a disagreement, and then we had just bought ice cream, so I had stopped eating mine because I didn't feel like eating it anymore because we were having an argument, and then he was like, "Are you not going to eat that?" And I said no, and he threw it out the window. So we laugh about that now, but at the time, that was a serious matter. You don't take my ice cream and throw it out the window. How dare you? But now it's hilarious. And then on the mental level, which is supposed to be like the intermediate level, I'm going to talk about being an employee and a student. And being an employee, workplace communication is really important. Right now, I just work at a tanning salon, which you wouldn't think you need a lot of communication, but you do because the customers there, usually women, some men that come to tan, you know, they want to come to relax there, so you can't bring your problems to work. You know, you can't say rude remarks to them, you can't, stand there with stone face. You need to be nice to them, courteous to them. You have to have a good relationship with the people that you work with and use time management. So mindfulness has helped me with that to start leaving my problems at home. And then when I get to work, I'm there to help people pick out which tanning bed they want to use and such. And then my future career is going to be a counselor. And I'm going to use mindfulness and the models that we've studied in here. Our business model that we did in here, I missed that class, so I didn't get to present mine, but I actually, this is like a dream of mine to have my own office, but it's not just for counseling. We're going to do like group therapy, like meditation together. We're going to have yoga classes together. There'll be different rooms with like mirrors and things on the wall to do yoga in, and then there'll be like different colored rooms for different activities. It'll be for all different types of people, any disorder you have, or if you don't have a disorder at all. And so I really wanted to share that with you on that day. I'm really sad I missed that. And then recently, I actually had to use mindfulness to help myself job-wise because I I had to decline a job that I really, really wanted to take, and the reason was because this week is finals week, and they wanted me to go out of town and do training all week, and I couldn't miss this presentation, my presentation after this, my last multiple choice final. I couldn't miss all of that, so I had to respectfully decline that, and I felt very upset. I worked really hard to even get an interview at this place, and it was an introduction to counseling job, but then I just decided to accept it and let it go, and there'll be a better one come along, I'm sure. And then as a student, again, time management, relationships with the people around you and your professors. I've noticed since I've been practicing mindfulness that I've had a lot better relationships with people, even ones that I don't know, because I've been more mindful of how they're feeling that day. If I've noticed someone's, feeling a little behind, like I'll help them, I'll remind them of things, help them with their notes, maybe even help them with their assignment, or just like ask them if they want to talk about it. Stress. I don't know if I've met anybody that has said that college has not been stressful for them, all age groups. We have all age groups in this class and my other ones, and I've not met one person that said that it's not been a stressful experience for them. So, not just for me, all students. That's a major factor that mindfulness can help with. Goals, that's one thing that I've never really thought about before. I've always been taught to be very striving towards goals and always working towards something, but now I've adopted the ideas of mindfulness to be non-striving and then accepting of the achievements and the grades that you get and taking them as they are, instead of thinking this is not good enough, or I have to get this grade to succeed, or I have to win this award. And then priorities and values. Some people think that they lose their values in college. Some people are very close-minded and they think people in college are going to try to make you not religious anymore, or try to take your political views from you. But to me, I think you find your priorities and your values in college, and that mindfulness can help keep what you already have and then add to it, because that's what I've done. And then on the macro level, that's part of the nation, a society, a civilization, and the entire world. I think mindfulness on this level can be generalized and summed up all together as one, so that's what I'm going to do. I think we have certain responsibilities as a human being, part of any of these subsets, and that mindfulness helps us reach them. And then I think one of the main goals of mindfulness is to end suffering. And I think that in ending other suffering, we end our own. And so I have a Mother Teresa quote that I really like, and I read to myself a lot to remind myself not to be selfish and to see the whole picture. So it says, I used to pray that God would feed the hungry or do this or that, but now I pray that He will guide me to do whatever I'm supposed to do and what I can do. I used to pray for answers, but now I'm praying for strength. I used to believe that prayer changes things, but now I know that prayer changes us and we change things. So I think this is true and a good guideline, whatever you believe religiously, spiritually, even if mindfulness is your only guideline to go by after this. I think that that's a really good quote to take to heart and think about, because if you only use mindfulness on yourself, then you're not reaching out and helping other people, so they can't reach out. That's it. And my references, I'll just attach and send you, because it's really long, it wasn't going to fit on a PowerPoint. So I'll just attach them when I send you my PowerPoint. Question when I gave kind of a good cloud, maybe. But if you have a question, you can ask it.
So basically, you did that, please?
Oh, I know. I'm handing more out just
Thank you.
So basically, you use the MBSR, right?
Yes.
That incorporate yoga. You don't have any specific for MBSR. You have specific time for meditation.
Yeah, I don't, I usually do morning and evening, but I kind of just tailor the different therapies to myself. That's why it was hard to talk about my therapy because my life's so busy, I like to just tailor them to myself. So it's kind of like, that's why I just made my own model.
Probably this is more suitable for the ACT or DBT than the MDs because when you can measure my MDs are really quite
Required to do things.
certain times. Certain times.
Yeah, I was just mentioning in the SR to go with people that have sleep problems, maybe, or stress problems. But for myself, yeah, I just kind of combined all the models together. So there's not really one that fits my life right now. So I just made my own.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you forgot something?
That was a me.
Jessica, you forgot?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, bags up there too.
Sorry, I'm like all, I'm discombobulated, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm discombobulated.
Yeah. What should I say again?
Yes.
Let me know that, my glasses last.
This is the name we kept seeing on the slides. Okay, that makes sense.
I was told on there.
Yeah, no, I knew, yeah, I kept looking at your last name on slide too, and I was like,
Who is that?
I knew it was, that's not home.
While waiting for Lord to turn on the half voice, Tina, I have one more suggestion because you say that in the future you like the counselor, right? What kind of counselor? Family counselor or
I'm thinking I want to be like a marriage and family counselor.
What's
So
that?
like a marriage and family counselor.
Okay.
Yeah. I did want to do just counseling for women, but I think maybe I'll just do that on the side because I really just like to open this to everybody. But I think I want to specialize in like marriage and family unit.
If it's standard for your patients, they walk into the office, you can give them some kind of guidelines. And these are ECT or DBT or ACT so that they know this is the guideline.
This is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, I figured I would do like individualized things for each of them, like what they should follow, like a meditation regimen. You should come to this certain group therapy or this group therapy that incorporates yoga, those kind of different things, so that everybody can have something to meet their needs. And then I said that I wouldn't be the only therapist or counselor there. I would have others there that specialize too, and that we would meet in the mornings and have meditation together and like group sharing and things. What do I want to do? Okay, it takes lots of money and time to get there.
Kind of, it's part of, I think it's part of the contract, they have to have a response, to either fire, but usually they don't. Maintenance is not the only one that can come in, they knock and they manage themselves, and if you don't answer, they come in, they probably slip in, and they need to do it. Housing is about like you guys.
After work every night, I've been staying up working on this. Like, all this to be done at least, so witching hours. So I was not in my right mind. Today, this morning I woke up at 5 a.m. and like, I'm gonna go on a PowerPoint to make sure they're out here. Never got here, but I just started this.
So, I will try to run my presentation very quick because I do know like after this class, everybody's gonna have a final or something coming up. So I will try to make it like stressful about my presentation. And my presentation, if somebody know like my last semester, we had running through the honor program, so I do a research about TPI, traumatic brain injury, and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So really interesting topic. I would look at like how mindfulness like can have people like shoulder how can they release their stress? Because we do know we have a lot of medicine, and sometimes I think it doesn't work out. So we can try meditation, because some people think meditation is seen really an awkward way. Like how can you release your stress without medicine? So we can look at that. And we do know PTSD is about like anxiety, it's like stress disorder, and usually it's array from like you see something like a really scary situation in front of you, like I witnessed somebody die, or you can say like you was raped or sexual abuse or something like that. You're gonna like remind you over and over. So to be able to understand about like how emotional human work, I will look at like the physical, how the brain works. But here, we're talking about the symptom. How do you realize about when a person have a PTSD? Through a couple, you can see it here. People usually like they feel depressed all the time. They're not like in the mood very easily to change. Or sometimes like you talk to that person, they're not actually like pay attention or concentration at the moment. Actually like their minds is, like keep thinking about what's going on happening in the past over and over. So here we look at the brain function. We all know our brain is like a really high level about computer technology because they control so many different functions of human body. But at here we were looking about the cognitive and the emotion because PTSD actually is about mental disorder. First, we talk about the limbic system function. The reason I pull up the limbic system function is because in this system, there actually is control about emotion, how we feel, and control about the taste. And here we're going to look more specifically hypothalamus. That's the mind response to the feeling. And then we can look at the amygdala. You can see it on the picture. It's very tiny. It looks like a peanut right there.
Cable's loose. Maybe the plug is loose.
Connection or something like that.
It's saying there's no signal.
We look at like the amygdala actually.
Can we send it to that one? Can we send it to that?
Yes, okay. You could do so.
Is,
Yes.
It's strange. So strange.
That's okay. Can you see?
Yeah, you see all right. We'll make it weird. It's okay.
Let's try to work with that. Get blue. Yeah.
But yeah, so we can see it right here, the amygdala, very small and white spot right here. That one is really important because that one is actually like they include the biochemical in the brain. So every time when you have stress or the time you're thinking, that's when you increase your blood pressure in your body. So the whole entire of your brain, they're gonna have like right here, they're gonna like get bigger, like shrink down because there's so much chemicals stay in one place because they stay a lot under stress. So we remember about the amygdala. So I'm gonna explain like how the information like transmission in the brain. Like whenever I'm talking about the amygdala, like stay a lot all the time, you can see about like you ask a question, look like your friend, you don't even know your friend. Look like sometimes she's stressed or he's stressful in a class, and you ask him, hey, how can you answer the question? I see it, but they don't respond back to you because why? Because the amygdala actually is stay straight, so that's why they cannot receive the message go through the brain. So that's why they cannot respond. The next one, you can see actually the human, like our mind when we was born, actually we clear nothing. But because the visual is look like a camera, we record the picture, whatever we see in front of our eyes. So, and here we can see like from point A, look like, this is the fire that's really hot. And whenever the feet touch it, because the reason your feet touch it, because they say, oh, this is so hot. So whenever your eyes see the fire and your body feel really hot, and then they directly send a message to your brain and let your brain know, okay, this is really hot, I need to be aware about this, so next time I would never touch it ever again. So if like in the extremely situation is very scary, like shoulder, like in front of your eyes or something really scary, when you see it, you don't have to even touch it, but when you can hear it through your ear and you see it, it's still recorded, look like a video, they record it over. So actually they keep it right there at your limbic system, your emotional response. So that's why your amygdala, it cannot ever release the chemical in there because they only think about the scary moment you used to have in the past. And then you don't even know whenever that harmful, dangerous situation is going to be reappear ever again. And that's why I want to like show a video about demonstrate how amygdala and anxiety work. So hopefully the videos.
Yes, okay. It will sound like that. No, don't forget about that. Just like
Should have. No, actually, that's when it's always on off. Let's see a quick plays. No. Okay, they don't talk, so I will talk for them. So right here, it's gonna be easy, like, you can start everything here. We're talking about, you see it, this is the amygdala, so we can explain like, okay, now, they say a lot, really stressing, this is a normal moment, whenever, like, we have a conflict, something really scary, so you can see the levels keep going up, going up, going up more. You can have so much stress, job, work. So especially it's about, like I said, about people, sober, vegetarian, they stay straight all the time, is because the amygdala is stay alone.
Becomes instinctual. The subconscious mind, which controls all the automatic logic systems, thinks that this new anxiety is appropriate and normal, but you know consciously that it is not. It is as if the hard drive of your mind has been reprogrammed with new anxious software. With this new anxiety level come sensations and symptoms of anxiety disorder and maybe panic attacks, phobias, and disturbing thoughts. So in order to reverse these changes, you have to reset the needle of your amygdala back to the normal position. The Linden method does exactly that. It shows you exactly what you need to do today to keep your responses in the normal zone tomorrow. It can be that fast. Once your subconscious has this new set of rules, it can't turn back. The amygdala is a pair of small organs in the brain.
So that's a good example, like we can see how the amygdala works. And next one I'm gonna talking about example about like this. I will show very short video. We can see like how actually a real situation in life, how whenever a person goes to the war and then coming back, how the amygdala like change his behavior is like totally like all the way.
Stay with me. On Thursday, a hamster video goes online. On Friday, it goes viral. A network choking for noise. Why do you think? He's obsessed about business. The more hits he gets, the slower your business may get. Do you want to share your plans with the hamster? Today, there's a new way to work. And it's made with idea.
We can watch it very short, so we don't have to watch all of it.
AC360, CNN weeknights 8 Eastern.
Mike Rio can't go to the grocery for without making a list, even for just one item.
You pay attention how he speaks, behave, he acting so different, really normal person.
And he can't stand for more than 30 minutes because of severe back pain. This is Mike Rio's life post-Afghanistan.
I need to discover who I am. I'm not asking for help for the rest of my life. I want to feel like
Mike's wife Maggie says her husband returned from war a shell of the man he once was. Gone was the fun-loving, free-spirited, laid-back guy he used to be. War, she says, changed him. He still has brain in years from explosions and also suffers from vertigo, headaches, and has terrible anxiety. We saw it firsthand during our interview. Mike was so anxious he could hardly sit still.
Yeah, I think that's a good example, like to show that whole, like we can see like how his behavior is completely changed. With a normal person, we can sit, we can still, we can relax, but for him it's not, because his immediate cell blood so much. Next one we are looking to like how mindfulness is really actually like help you decrease the biochemical in the amygdala and help you to stay alert from very high stress form to come back to normal. So we usually know about mindfulness, we think about at the moment, at the present, but whenever you sit in one place, ask yourself, am I really staying in the moment or just only my body? Where is my mind going? I'm thinking about the past, or I'm thinking about what's going on happen next? Look like when you listen to me right now, maybe you think about, oh my God, whenever this is going to be done, so I can run to the final, the next class, right? I mean, that's true. That is how we feel right now. But if you really like concentration and relax a little, so you can do mindfulness and you can do better. So if you are talking about how mindfulness-based cognitive therapy going to helpful because you know very basic information is about cognitive, it's control our emotion. So when you do mindful, that means you try to practice and tell yourself, I need to be present. You shouldn't worry about what's going on happen in the past and how to be the result for the future. So after you try to imagine about you are like standing in front of the ocean, you are the wind, you can fly, and try to make, like your mind is free from judgment or worry or stress or anxiety. So at the same time, this is the way how people they treatment with PTSD because they don't want to bring the soldier back to the past. Look like the video showed you the reason he takes so many medicine but it doesn't work out because every single second, every single moment, we only thinking about what did happen in the past. He hear a gunshot, a flashback, anything so scary for him. So that's why medicine is still not working. So and we think about like we know about like Tina, she presented about how to do yoga. You try to put your body balance and try to like actually make your blood in your body flow like the whole time from your head to your toe and toe to your head instead of that the plus like so much concentration in your brain, especially at the amygdala. And the benefit from meditation actually is you can relax your anxiety, stressful movement, and you can make more wisdom about decisions, what you want to do, and especially with shoulder, like after the war, they come back home, like look like a guy, he cannot go to the grocery store by himself, he cannot listen to the phone. It's because every time he's so stressful about what he's going to do next, how he's going to protect himself, instead of thinking about